When a privileged heiress crashes her luxury car during a storm, she never expects to be rescued by a small-town mechanic with grease-stained hands and an honest heart. What begins as a chance encounter becomes a love story that will force Serena Langley to choose between the gilded cage of her family's fortune and the authentic happiness she's never known. This is a tale of breaking free from expectations, finding real love in unexpected places, and discovering that sometimes losing everything is the only way to gain what truly matters. Get ready for a journey of passion, sacrifice, and the courage to rewrite your own destiny. Before we start this story, comment below from where you're watching us. The morning sun shone through the tall windows of the Langley penthouse as Serena Langley applied her lipstick with practiced precision. At 25, she had mastered the art of looking perfect in record time. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her designer outfit cost more than what most people made in a month. "Miss Langley, your mother is on the phone," said Maria, the housekeeper who had practically raised her. Serena sighed and picked up her cell phone. "Mother, I told you I'd be at the charity event tonight." "That's not why I'm calling," Elizabeth Langley's cold voice replied. "The board meeting has been moved up. They want to discuss the new resort in Dubai, and they expect you to be there. But I'm supposed to be heading upstate to check on the lodge renovations today. Then you'll have to do both. The company doesn't run itself, Serena, and you need to start taking more responsibility. Your father may have left you his shares, but I'm still in charge." The call ended before Serena could respond. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. 5 years after her father's death, and her mother still treated her like a child. When a privileged heiress crashes her luxury car during a storm, she never expects to be rescued by a small-town mechanic with grease-stained hands and an honest heart. What begins as a chance encounter becomes a love story that will force Serena Langley to choose between the gilded cage of her family's fortune and the authentic happiness she's never known. This is a tale of breaking free from expectations, finding real love in unexpected places, and discovering that sometimes losing everything is the only way to gain what truly matters. Get ready for a journey of passion, sacrifice, and the courage to rewrite your own destiny. Before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The morning sun shone through the tall windows of the Langley penthouse as Serena Langley applied her lipstick with practiced precision. At 25, she had mastered the art of looking perfect in record time. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her designer outfit cost more than what most people made in a month. "Miss Langley, your mother is on the phone," said Maria, the housekeeper who had practically raised her. Serena sighed and picked up her cell phone. "Mother, I told you I'd be at the charity event tonight." "That's not why I'm calling," Elizabeth Langley's cold voice replied. "The board meeting has been moved up. They want to discuss the new resort in Dubai, and they expect you to be there. But I'm supposed to be heading upstate to check on the lodge renovations today. Then you'll have to do both. The company doesn't run itself, Serena, and you need to start taking more responsibility. Your father may have left you his shares, but I'm still in charge." The call ended before Serena could respond. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. 5 years after her father's death, and her mother still treated her like a child, useful only as the pretty face of Langley resorts in magazine spreads and charity events. "Will you be taking the car service, miss?" Maria asked, entering with a cup of coffee. "No," Serena replied, taking the cup. "I'll drive myself upstate. I need some time alone." 3 hours later, Serena was speeding along the winding roads of upstate New York in her father's vintage Jaguar. The car had been his pride and joy, and driving it always made her feel closer to him. Dark clouds gathered overhead as she approached the mountains. The weather report hadn't mentioned rain, but it wouldn't be the first time the forecast was wrong. Serena turned on the radio, searching for a station when the first heavy drops hit the windshield. Within minutes, the light rain turned into a downpour. The wipers struggled to keep up, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. Serena slowed down, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Just great," she muttered, peering through the blurred windshield. A sharp curve appeared suddenly, and Serena turned the wheel too quickly. The tires lost their grip on the wet asphalt. The car spun, and before she could regain control, it crashed through the guardrail. Time seemed to slow down as the Jaguar tumbled down the ravine. Serena screamed, her hands desperately clutching at anything she could grab. The car finally came to a stop at the bottom, the front end crushed against a tree. Pain shot through her leg as she tried to move. The windshield was shattered, and rain poured in. Serena reached for her purse to find her phone, but it had been thrown from the car during the crash. "Help!" she called out, but her voice was drowned by the storm. "Somebody help me." Hours passed. The rain eventually stopped, but Serena remained trapped in the car, her leg bleeding and throbbing with pain. Night was approaching, and with it, the temperature began to drop. "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to die here." The sound of footsteps made her look up. A large figure appeared at the edge of the ravine, scanning the area. Serena waved her arms frantically. "Down here. Please help me." The figure spotted her and quickly made its way down the steep slope. As it got closer, Serena could see it was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing work clothes covered in grease stains. "Don't move," he said, his deep voice calm as he reached the car. "Are you hurt?" "My leg," Serena replied, pointing to where her designer pants were torn and bloody. "I think it's cut pretty bad." The man nodded and carefully examined the car, checking if it was stable before opening the damaged door. "I'm going to get you out of there," he said. "My name's Deshawn Briggs." "Serena," she replied, not giving her last name out of habit. Langley was a name that changed how people acted around her. With gentle but strong hands, Deshawn helped her out of the wreckage. He was careful not to jostle her injured leg. "Can you walk?" he asked. Serena tried to put weight on her leg, but winced in pain. "No, I don't think so." Without hesitation, Deshawn turned and crouched down. "Put your arms around my neck. I'll carry you up." Serena hesitated. In her world, people didn't just help strangers without expecting something in return. But she had no choice. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and he lifted her onto his back with ease. The climb up the ravine was difficult, but Deshawn moved with surprising agility for a man his size. Once they reached the road, Serena saw an old pickup truck parked on the shoulder. "That's my truck," Deshawn explained, helping her into the passenger seat. "I was heading home from work when I saw the broken guardrail. Thought I should check it out." "Thank God you did," Serena said, suddenly overwhelmed by how close she'd come to spending the night injured in the ravine. "We need a call for help. My phone was lost in the crash." "There's no service out here," Deshawn said, starting the engine. "But my garage isn't far. We can call from there, and I've got a first aid kit to look at that leg." As they drove, Serena stole glances at her rescuer. Deshawn's face was serious, his dark eyes focused on the road. His hands, gripping the steering wheel, were strong and callous from hard work. "You said you have a garage?" she asked, trying to distract herself from the pain. "Yeah, Briggs Auto Repair. It's not much, but it's mine. Been running it for 5 years now." 5 years. The same amount of time since her father had died. Serena looked out the window at the passing trees. "Thank you for helping me. Most people wouldn't have stopped." Deshawn glanced at her. "Where I come from, that's what neighbors do." They pulled up to a small building with a large garage door and a sign that read Briggs Auto Repair. Deshawn helped Serena inside and sat her down in an office chair. "Let me take a look at that leg," he said, rolling up a tool cabinet and opening a first aid kit on top of it. "Shouldn't we go to a hospital?" Serena asked. Deshawn's expression darkened slightly. "I don't trust hospitals out here," he said quietly but firmly. "Besides, it looks like a clean cut. Nothing I can't handle." With surprising gentleness, he cleaned and bandaged her wound. His hands were steady and sure, and Serena found herself relaxing despite the situation. "You're good at this," she commented. "Had a lot of practice." In this business, cuts and bruises are part of the job. He finished wrapping her leg. "There. That should hold until we can get you proper help." Deshawn went to the office phone and dialed. "I'm calling the sheriff. He can contact whoever you need to come get you." Serena suddenly felt panic rise in her chest. If word got out that Serena Langley had been in an accident, the press would have a field day. Her mother would be furious about the negative publicity. "Wait," she said, grabbing his arm. I don't want a big fuss. Can we just call private car service?" Deshawn looked at her curiously, but nodded. "Your call." While they waited for the car to arrive, Deshawn made her a cup of instant coffee. The office was small but tidy, with framed certificates on the wall showing his qualifications as a mechanic. "So, what brings a woman like you out to these parts?" he asked, sitting across from her. "A woman like me?" Serena repeated, raising an eyebrow. Deshawn gestured to her clothes and the expensive watch on her wrist. "You're not exactly dressed for the country." Serena almost told him about the lodge and the family business, but stopped herself. For once, someone was talking to her like a normal person, not the Langley heiress. "I was just driving through," she said, "taking some time for myself." Deshawn nodded, not pushing for more. Sometimes that's all a person needs. The headlights of a black SUV appeared outside. The car service had arrived. "That's my ride," Serena said, standing up carefully. Her leg still hurt, but the pain had dulled to a throb. Deshawn helped her to the door. "You should still see a doctor about that leg." "I will," she promised. "Thank you again for everything." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Take care of yourself, Serena." As the driver helped her into the car, Serena looked back at Deshawn, standing in the doorway of his garage. Something about him had gotten under her skin. The way he looked at her, not as an heiress or a pretty face, but as a person. During the drive back to the city, Serena called her mother. "Where have you been?" Elizabeth demanded. "The board was expecting you hours ago." "I had car trouble," Serena lied. "I'll be there for the charity event tonight." "Make sure you are. The Lancasters will be there, and they're considering investing in the new resort." After hanging up, Serena stared out the window at the passing landscape. She hadn't mentioned Deshawn or the accident. For some reason, she wanted to keep that experience to herself. It felt real in a way her normal life didn't. That night, dressed in a designer gown with her hair and makeup perfect, Serena played her part at the charity ball. She smiled for photos, charmed the investors, and did everything her mother expected of her. But her mind kept drifting back to a small garage in upstate New York and a man with grease-stained hands who had carried her to safety and asked for nothing in return. 2 weeks later, Serena sat through another boring board meeting, pretending to take notes while her mother discussed profit margins. Her leg had healed well, leaving only a small scar that she kept hidden under designer pants. "Serena, are you even listening?" Her mother's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Yes, of course," she replied automatically. "Then what do you think about Mr. Peterson's proposal for the Miami location?" Serena scrambled for something to say, but was saved by her mother's assistant entering with an urgent message. As Elizabeth stepped out to take the call, Serena excused herself to use the restroom. In the hallway, she paused by a window overlooking the city. Her life had always been mapped out for her: boarding schools, Ivy League college, then a carefully managed role in the family business. But lately, it all fell hollow. Back in the meeting room, Serena made a sudden decision. "Mother, I need to take a few days off," she announced when Elizabeth returned. "The lodge renovations aren't going as planned, and I should oversee them personally." Elizabeth frowned. "Can't you send someone else?" "Dad always said a Langley should handle important projects personally," Serena replied, knowing her mother couldn't argue with that. The next morning, Serena was back on the road to upstate New York. This time, the sky was clear, and she drove a different car, a luxury sedan with a tiny scratch on the fender that didn't really need fixing. But she knew a garage where she could get it looked at anyway. As she approached the small town, her heart beat faster. She told herself it was just curiosity or gratitude, nothing more. But when she pulled up to Briggs Auto Repair and saw Deshawn emerge from under a car he was working on, wiping his hands on a rag, Serena knew she was lying to herself. She was back for a reason that had nothing to do with her car, and everything to do with the man standing in front of her, surprise registering on his face as he recognized her. "Serena," he said, walking toward her, "is everything okay?" She smiled, suddenly nervous. "My car has a scratch. I was hoping you could take a look at it." Deshawn glanced at the barely visible mark on her fender, then back at her face. Something in his eyes told her he wasn't fooled. "Sure," he said slowly. "I can take a look at that scratch." And as Serena followed him into the garage, she knew her carefully controlled life was about to change forever. Deshawn circled Serena's luxury sedan, examining the tiny scratch on the fender. It was barely visible, Certainly not something anyone would drive 2 hours from New York City to fix. This won't take long, he said, glancing at Serena, who stood awkwardly in the garage. You can wait in the office if you want. There's coffee. Serena nodded and headed to the small office. She felt ridiculous. What was she doing here? She had meetings scheduled for tomorrow, a charity dinner next week, and a photo shoot for a magazine cover the following month. Her life was in New York, not in this small-town garage. Yet here she was, watching through the office window as Deshawn carefully worked on her car. His movements were precise and confident, so different from the hesitant, calculated gestures of the businessmen and socialites she normally spent time with. Deshawn entered the office, wiping his hands on a rag. All done. I buffed out the scratch. Good as new. Thank you, Serena said, reaching for her purse. How much do I owe you? Don't worry about it. It was nothing. I can't let you work for free. Deshawn shrugged. Consider it payback for giving me something interesting to do today. Not much happens around here. Serena should have thanked him and left. Instead, she found herself asking, is there somewhere to get lunch in town? I'm starving. Deshawn looked surprised. There's a diner about a block from here. Nothing fancy, but the food's good. Would you like to join me? My treat, she added quickly. To thank you for fixing my car. He hesitated, looking down at his oil-stained work clothes. I'm not exactly dressed for lunch with someone like you. Someone like me? Serena repeated, echoing their conversation from before. A small smile tugged at the corner of Deshawn's mouth. You know what I mean. I'm just hungry, and I hate eating alone, Serena said. Besides, I'm not dressed for fashion show either. She gestured to her simple blouse and jeans, casual by her standards, though the brands would give away their cost to anyone who recognized them. Deshawn finally nodded. All right, let me clean up a bit. The diner was small and homey, with red vinyl booths and a waitress who greeted Deshawn by name. They settled into a booth by the window, and Serena felt strangely nervous, like this was a first date. Which was ridiculous. She didn't date men like Deshawn Briggs. So, Deshawn said after they ordered, are you going to tell me what you're really doing here? Serena nearly choked on her water. What do you mean? That scratch could have been fixed anywhere in New York. You didn't need to drive all the way out here. Serena considered lying, but found she didn't want to. I wanted to thank you properly for helping me after the accident. And, she hesitated, I guess I wanted to see you again. Deshawn studied her face, as if trying to determine if she was telling the truth. What? Because you treated me like a regular person, she admitted. Do you know who I am? Serena, he replied simply. The woman I pulled out a wrecked car. She smiled, relieved. That's right, just Serena. For the first time in years, she enjoyed a meal without worrying about who might be watching or what impression she was making. Deshawn told her about growing up in the town, taking over the garage after his father died, and his dream of expanding the business someday. What about you, he asked. What do you do when you're not driving into ditches or getting tiny scratches fixed? Serena laughed. I work for my family's business. It's demanding. My mother has very high expectations. And what about your expectations? What do you want? The question caught her off guard. No one ever asked what she wanted. Only what she could do for the company, for the family name, for the public image. I don't know, she answered honestly. I've never really thought about it. After lunch, they walked back to the garage in comfortable silence. Serena knew she should head back to the city, but she wasn't ready to leave. Thank you for lunch, Deshawn said as they reached her car. It was unexpected. Good unexpected, I hope. He nodded, a small smile on his face. Yeah, good unexpected. Serena got into her car, but before starting the engine, she rolled down the window. Maybe I'll see you around, Deshawn Briggs. Maybe you will, just Serena. On the drive back to New York, Serena couldn't stop smiling. For a few hours, she had been herself. Not the Millionaire Heiress, not the face of a global brand, just Serena. And it had felt wonderful. 3 weeks later, Serena's BMW convertible made its way back to Briggs Auto Repair. This time, the engine was making a strange noise. At least, that's what she told her assistant when she canceled her afternoon meetings. Deshawn was under a truck when she arrived, only his legs visible. Serena cleared her throat, and he slid out from under the vehicle. Your car again? He asked, getting to his feet. It's making a noise, Serena explained. Like a humming? Or maybe a clicking? I'm not sure, but it doesn't sound right. Deshawn raised an eyebrow. Let's take a listen. He drove the car around the block, Serena in the passenger seat, and returned to the garage with a knowing look. I don't hear anything, he said. Serena feigned surprise. Really? That's strange. It was definitely making a noise earlier. Uh-huh. Deshawn's expression made it clear he didn't believe her for a second. Well, while you're here, why don't I change your oil? Preventative maintenance. Serena agreed, and once again found herself in the small office, watching Deshawn work. This time, she had brought a book to pass the time. You like jazz? Deshawn asked, noticing the biography of a famous jazz musician in her hands. My father did, Serena replied. He used to play records on Sunday mornings. It's one of my favorite memories of him. Used to. He died 5 years ago. Deshawn's face softened. I'm sorry. My dad's been gone for 7 years now. Cancer. Car accident, Serena said quietly. At least it was quick. They shared a moment of understanding. Two people who knew what it was like to lose a parent too soon. I've got some records in the back, Deshawn said. Nothing fancy, just some old vinyl my dad collected. Want to hear them? For the next hour, they listened to jazz records on an ancient record player while Deshawn changed her oil and checked the car's other systems. Serena sat on a stool next to him, passing tools when asked and learning the names of engine parts she had never cared about before. You're good at this, Deshawn commented as she handed him the correct wrench without being asked. I'm a fast learner, she replied with a smile. When the job was done, Deshawn refused payment again. Consider it a music appreciation session, he said. At least let me bring lunch next time, Serena insisted, then blushed at her assumption there would be a next time. But Deshawn just smiled. Deal. The pattern continued over the next few weeks. Serena would find excuses to drive out to the small town. A strange rattling sound, a check engine light that mysteriously turned off by the time she arrived, a tire that needed rotating. Each visit lasted longer than the last. They shared lunches, talked about books and music, and gradually, Serena began opening up about her life in New York. So you're telling me, Deshawn said one afternoon as they sat on the hood of a car, eating sandwiches, that your family owns hotels? Resorts, Serena corrected. Langley Luxury Resorts. We have properties all over the world. Deshawn nearly choked on a sandwich. Wait, you're that Langley? As in Langley, as in the people who own that big lodge up in the mountains. Serena nodded, suddenly nervous. Would he treat her differently now? Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Because I like being just Serena with you, she admitted. Not Serena Langley, heiress, and board member, and whatever else people see when they look at me. Deshawn was quiet for a moment, then shrugged. Makes no difference to me. You're still the worst liar I've ever met. My car is making a strange humming noise, he mimicked in a high voice. Serena laughed and playfully shoved his shoulder. I do not sound like that. For his part, Deshawn began to share more about himself as well. He told her about his dreams of expanding the garage, maybe opening a second location in a nearby town. How he had turned down a scholarship to engineering school to take care of his mother after his father died. Do you regret it? Serena asked. Sometimes, he admitted, but my mom needed me, and I'm good at what I do. You are, Serena agreed, but it's never too late to go back to school. Deshawn smiled at her. Maybe someday, one evening, as Serena prepared to drive back to the city after spending the afternoon helping Deshawn organize his office filing system, dark clouds began rolling in. You should wait out the storm, Deshawn said, looking concerned. The mountain roads get dangerous when it rains. Serena thought about the board meeting scheduled for the next morning, but found she didn't care. Okay, she agreed. I'll call my mother and let her know I'm staying upstate tonight. The call went about as well as expected. What do you mean you're not coming back tonight? Elizabeth Langley demanded. The Henderson contract review is first thing tomorrow. I'm sorry, Mother, but there's a storm coming. It's not safe to drive. Where exactly are you? I'll send a helicopter. Serena winced. I'm checking on the lodge renovations. It's fine, really. I'll drive back first thing in the morning. After hanging up, Serena found Deshawn in the garage office, preparing a makeshift bed on the small couch. You can take the couch, he said. About a cot in the back I use for late nights. I'm sorry to impose, Serena said. I could try to find a hotel. In this town, the nearest decent hotel is 30 miles away. Thunder rumbled outside, emphasizing his point. Besides, it's no imposition. I'm the one who suggested you stay. As the storm intensified, they ordered pizza from the only place in town that delivered and ate it sitting on the office floor, sharing stories from their childhoods. So wait, Deshawn laughed. You actually crashed your father's golf cart into the pond at your country club? I was 12, and my cousin dared me to drive it. Serena protested, laughing along with him. My mother was mortified. My father couldn't stop laughing. You miss him a lot, don't you? Deshawn asked, his voice softening. Serena nodded. He was the only one who ever let me be myself. After he died, my mother took control of everything. The company, the family name, my life. And what would you do? If you could do anything, be anyone. Serena considered the question. I'd like to run my own business someday. Something small, where I know every employee's name. Where I could make a difference in people's lives, not just their vacation experiences. You'd be good at that, Deshawn said with conviction. How do you know? Because you care. About people, not just profits. They talked late into the night as the storm raged outside. Serena learned about Deshawn's younger sister who was in college studying medicine, his mother who had moved to Florida for her health, and the community of the small town that had supported him after his father's death. Eventually, Serena's eyes grew heavy. Deshawn noticed and stood up, offering his hand to help her to her feet. You should get some rest, he said. I'll be in the back if you need anything. Serena took his hand, but didn't let go when she stood. They were close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. Deshawn, she said softly, thank you. For what? For seeing me, the real me. Before she could lose her nerve, Serena leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't an impulsive kiss, not a sudden burst of passion or a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate choice. The first real choice she had made for herself in years. For a moment, Deshawn didn't respond, and Serena feared she had misread everything. Then his arms encircled her waist, pulling her gently against him as he returned the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Deshawn rested his forehead against hers. You know, this complicates things, he said quietly. I know. Your world and mine. They're different. I don't care, Serena replied, surprised to find she meant it. When I'm with you, I feel real. I feel safe. Deshawn brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle. Get some sleep, Serena. We'll figure things out in the morning. He left her in the office, closing the door behind him. Serena lay on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of motor oil and Deshawn's cologne, listening to the rain against the roof. For the first time in 5 years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Morning came with clear skies and the realization that Serena was already late for the board meeting. She called her mother while Deshawn made coffee in the small kitchenette attached to the office. Where are you? Elizabeth demanded without preamble. I'm on my way, Serena lied. The storm was worse than expected. I'll be there as soon as I can. Don't bother. The meeting's almost over. We managed without you. The dismissive tone stung, but not as much as it once would have. I'm sorry, Mother. I'll make it up to you. See that you do. And Serena, whatever's going on with you lately, I suggest you get it under control. The company needs your full attention. After hanging up, Serena accepted the cup of coffee Deshawn offered. Everything okay? He asked. No, she admitted, but I'm starting to think that's a good thing. They shared a simple breakfast of toast and eggs that Deshawn prepared on a hot plate. Neither mentioned the kiss from the night before, but something had shifted between them. The air felt charged with possibility. I should head back, Serena said reluctantly as they finished eating. I have responsibilities. Deshawn nodded. I understand. He walked her to her car, where they stood awkwardly, neither sure what to say. About last night, they both began at the same time, then laughed. You first, Deshawn said. Serena took a deep breath. I don't regret it. Kissing you. Relief washed over Deshawn's face. Good, because I don't either. But you were right. Our worlds are very different. They are, he agreed. which is why you should be sure about this. About us. Serena looked up at him, taking in his honest face, his steady gaze, the grease stain on the collar of his shirt. Everything about him was the opposite of the polished, calculating people who filled her world in New York. "I've never been more sure of anything," she said. Deshawn smiled and leaned down to kiss her again, a brief but tender gesture. "Then I guess we'll figure it out as we go." As Serena drove back to the city, her phone rang continuously with messages from her assistant, the board members, and her mother. For once, she let them go to voicemail. Her mind was on a small garage in upstate New York, and a man who had shown her what it felt like to be truly seen. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen days and secret phone calls. Serena would make excuses to visit the lodge, then spend hours at Deshawn's garage. They took walks through the small town, had dinner at the local diner, and spent evenings listening to jazz records in the garage office. It was a simple happiness Serena had never experienced before. With Deshawn, she didn't have to be perfect or poised or politically correct. She could laugh too loudly, get grease on her hands, and speak her mind without worrying about the consequences. But the bubble couldn't last forever. One afternoon, as they sat in Deshawn's truck eating ice cream from the local parlor, a car pulled up to the garage. A sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows. "Expecting someone?" Serena asked. Deshawn shook his head, frowning. "No appointments today." They watched as the driver's door opened and a woman stepped out, elegant, poised, and unmistakably Serena's mother. Elizabeth Langley surveyed the garage with obvious distaste before turning to look directly at the truck where Serena and Deshawn sat frozen. "I think," Serena said quietly, "that our worlds are about to collide." Elizabeth Langley's heels clicked sharply against the concrete as she approached the truck. Her tailored suit and perfectly styled hair looked wildly out of place in the small-town garage. "Mother," Serena said, stepping out of the truck, "what are you doing here?" "I think the better question is, what are you doing here?" Elizabeth's gaze shifted to Deshawn, who had also exited the vehicle. Her lips thinned with disapproval. And with him, Deshawn extended his hand. "Deshawn Briggs, ma'am. I own this garage." Elizabeth ignored his outstretched hand. "I'm well aware of who you are, Mr. Briggs. What I don't understand is why my daughter has been lying about her whereabouts to spend time in this establishment." "Mother, please," Serena said, feeling her face flush with embarrassment and anger. "Can we talk about this privately?" "By all means," Elizabeth replied coldly. "Mr. Briggs, if you'll excuse us." Deshawn looked at Serena, silently asking if she wanted him to stay. She gave him a small nod, indicating she would be okay. "I'll be inside if you need me," he said, then walked into the garage, his back straight and his head held high. Once he was gone, Elizabeth turned on Serena. "Have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea what you're risking? Your reputation, the company's image." "How did you find me?" Serena interrupted. "Your car has GPS tracking for security purposes. When you kept disappearing up here, I became concerned. Now I see my concerns were justified." Elizabeth looked around with distaste. "Is this some kind of rebellion? Or are you genuinely interested in this, mechanic?" The way she said the word made it sound like an insult. Serena felt her anger rising. "His name is Deshawn. And yes, I'm interested in him. He's kind and honest and treats me like a real person." "He's nobody," Elizabeth snapped. "A mechanic from a town no one's ever heard of. You are a Langley. Your father built an empire for you." "For us," Serena corrected. "And he would have wanted me to be happy." "Happy?" Elizabeth laughed without humor. "Your father understood that our position requires sacrifices. Personal happiness is a luxury we can't always afford." "That's not true," Serena insisted. "Dad always made time for the things that mattered, for the people that mattered." Elizabeth's expression hardened. And look where that got him. Dead at 55 because he was too busy enjoying life to watch his health. The word struck Serena like a physical blow. Her mother had never spoken so bluntly about her father's death before. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Life isn't fair, Serena. The sooner you accept that, the better." Elizabeth straightened her jacket. "Now, I have a car waiting. We're going back to the city, and you're going to forget this, whatever this is. The Robertson deal is closing next week, and we need you focused." No. Elizabeth blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. Excuse me. I said no. Serena stood taller, finding strength she didn't know she had. I'm not going back with you, and I'm not going to pretend Deshaun doesn't exist. I care about him, Mother. Care about him? Elizabeth scoffed. You barely know him. This is infatuation, nothing more. You don't get to decide that for me. I'm still the CEO of Langley Resorts, and you represent our brand. Your behavior reflects on all of us. Elizabeth's voice was cold and businesslike now. If you insist on continuing this relationship, there will be consequences. Are you threatening me? Serena asked in disbelief. I'm protecting our family legacy. Elizabeth checked her watch. You have until tomorrow to come to your senses. After that, I'll do what's necessary for the good of the company. She turned and walked back to her car, not waiting for Serena's response. As a Mercedes pulled away, Serena stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Deshaun emerged from the garage and approached cautiously. You okay? Serena shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. No, I'm not. Without a word, Deshaun pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried. He didn't offer empty reassurances or ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. He simply held her, strong and steady, until her tears subsided. She's going to try to ruin this, Serena finally said, her voice muffled against his chest. She thinks you're beneath me. Deshaun tensed slightly, but didn't let go. Maybe she's right. Serena pulled back to look at him. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Serena, I'm a mechanic in a small town. You're the heiress to a global empire. In what world does this make sense? In my world, she said firmly. The real world, where people connect because of who they are, not what they own or where they come from. Deshaun sighed, reaching up to wipe a tear from her cheek. It's not going to be easy. Nothing worth having ever is, Serena replied, thinking of her father's favorite saying. That night, Serena stayed at the small apartment above Deshaun's garage. It was simple but clean, with secondhand furniture and walls decorated with framed records and old car advertisements. It felt more like a home than her luxurious penthouse ever had. They stayed up late, talking about Elizabeth's visit and what it meant for them. Deshaun listened as Serena explained the complicated relationship with her mother, how Elizabeth had hardened after her father's death, pouring herself into the company and expecting Serena to do the same. She wants me to be the perfect Langley, Serena said as they sat on Deshaun's worn couch. The face of the brand, always polished, always saying the right things. But that's not me. It never was. So who is the real Serena? Deshaun asked, his arm around her shoulders. She thought for a moment. I'm still figuring that out. But I know she's someone who wants to make her own choices. Someone who wants to do something meaningful with her life, not just be a pretty logo. And what about us? Where do we fit into this real life you're building? Serena turned to face him. I want you in my life, Deshaun. I'm not going to let my mother or anyone else take that away. The next morning, Serena woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Deshaun moving around the small kitchen. For a moment, she let herself imagine a life like this, simple, genuine, with someone who loved her for herself, not her name or her money. Her phone, which she had silenced the night before, showed 27 missed calls and 42 text messages. Most were from her mother and her assistant, but there were also several from board members and even one from the family lawyer. That doesn't look good, Deshaun commented, handing her a cup of coffee as he glanced at her phone. It's not, Serena agreed, scrolling through the messages. My mother has called an emergency board meeting. She's telling everyone I'm having some kind of breakdown. Deshaun sat beside her, his expression serious. Serena, I need to ask you something. Is this, us, worth risking everything you have? Your position, your inheritance, your family? Are you trying to talk me out of being with you? She asked, setting down her phone. I'm trying to make sure you've thought this through. I don't want you to wake up one day and resent me for what you lost. Serena took his hands in hers. I've spent my whole life being what other people wanted me to be. For once, I'm choosing what I want. Who I want. That's worth everything to me. Deshaun smiled, but his eyes remained troubled. Then I guess we face whatever comes next together. What came next was worse than either of them could have imagined. Serena returned to New York the following day to attend the board meeting. She wore one of her power suits, her hair and makeup perfect, armor for the battle ahead. The boardroom fell silent when she entered. Elizabeth sat at the head of the table, her face a mask of cold determination. "Ah, Serena, how nice of you to join us," she said, her tone making it clear she had expected Serena to avoid the confrontation. "I wouldn't miss it, Mother," Serena replied, taking her seat at the opposite end of the table. "Though I'm curious about the emergency that required calling everyone in on such short notice." Elizabeth slid a folder across the table. "Perhaps this will clarify things." Inside were printouts of spreadsheets showing financial projections. According to the numbers, Langley Resorts was set to lose millions if a key investment group pulled out of their new Dubai project. "I don't understand," Serena said, frowning at the documents. "The Robertson deal is solid. We've been negotiating for months." "It was solid," Elizabeth corrected, "until the Robertsons heard rumors about the Langley heiress slumming it with a small-town mechanic. They're very traditional, very concerned with appearances. They're reconsidering their position." Serena felt the eyes of every board member on her. Some looked curious, others disapproving, a few even sympathetic. "My personal life has nothing to do with our business deals," she insisted. "It has everything to do with it," Elizabeth countered. "You are the face of this company. Your father made sure of that. Every advertisement, every magazine spread, every charity gala, they all feature you because you represent the Langley brand. Elegant, sophisticated, exclusive. So what are you saying? That I have to end things with Deshawn to save the Robertson deal?" Elizabeth's smile was cold. "I'm saying you have a choice to make. Your little rebellion or your responsibility to this company and the people who depend on it." Serena looked around the table at the board members, men and women who had known her since childhood, who had worked with her father. None would meet her eye. "This is blackmail," she said quietly. "This is business," Elizabeth replied, "and it's time for you to decide where your priorities lie." Serena stood, gathering the papers and placing them back in the folder. "I'll need time to consider my options." "Of course," Elizabeth said, the triumph in her voice barely concealed. "Take all the time you need, until the end of the week." Serena left the boardroom with her head held high, but once inside the elevator, she sagged against the wall. Her mother was playing hardball, using the company her father had built as leverage. Back in her penthouse, Serena called Deshawn. "It's bad," she told him, explaining the board meeting and her mother's ultimatum. "She's using the company to force my hand." "Serena," Deshawn's voice was gentle but firm, "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." "You're not," she insisted. "My mother is doing this, not you. Still, maybe we should take a step back. Give things time to cool down. Is that what you want?" Serena asked, her heart sinking. There was a pause. "What I want is for you to be happy. If that means we can't be together right now, I understand." "No," Serena said firmly. "I'm not letting her dictate my life anymore. There has to be another way." For the next few days, Serena threw herself into research, reviewing the company bylaws, financial reports, and the terms of her father's will. She consulted with a lawyer friend who specialized in corporate law, seeking any leverage she could find. Meanwhile, Elizabeth continued her campaign to isolate Serena. Board members suddenly became too busy to take her calls. Invitations to important events were accidentally sent to old email addresses. Even Maria, the housekeeper who had helped raise her, was suddenly reassigned to another Langley property. The message was clear: fall in line or be cut out. Then, on Thursday morning, everything got exponentially worse. Serena was having coffee in her kitchen when her phone exploded with notifications. Her assistant called, voice frantic. "Have you seen it? It's everywhere." "Seen what?" Serena asked, a feeling of dread washing over her. "The photos of you and that man. They're in the Post, online, everywhere." Serena quickly pulled up a news site on her tablet. There, splashed across the front page of the gossip section, was a photo of her leaving Deshawn's garage. The headline read, "Heiress playing grease monkey. Serena Langley's secret small-town fling." The article was filled with innuendo and quotes from sources close to the family, suggesting Serena was having some kind of breakdown. It mentioned the Langley Resort stock taking a hit as investors questioned the stability of the company's future face. Below that was another headline, Langley Legacy in Jeopardy. Board members express concerns over Heiress's judgment. And worst of all, a third article, Mysterious Black Mechanic Caught with Serena Langley. Who is Deshaun Briggs? The piece included a grainy photo of Deshaun and detailed his humble beginnings and questionable business practices, completely fabricated claims about overcharging customers and cutting corners on repairs. Serena felt sick. This had her mother's fingerprints all over it. The timing was too perfect, the narrative too carefully crafted. Her phone rang again. Deshaun, I've been getting calls all morning, he said when she answered. Reporters, people I don't know asking for interviews. Someone's even parked outside the garage taking pictures. I'm so sorry, Serena said, her voice breaking. This is all my fault. No, it's not, Deshaun replied firmly. But Serena, this is getting out of hand. Your mother clearly isn't going to back down. I know, but neither am I. Maybe you should, Deshaun said quietly. For now, at least. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. Your mother is playing for keeps, and she's willing to drag both of us through the mud to win. Maybe it's better if we take a step back. Are you breaking up with me? Serena asked, her heart pounding. I'm trying to protect you, Deshaun answered. These articles, the board pressure, it's only going to get worse. And I can't stand the thought of you suffering because of me. Deshaun, please. I care about you too much to watch your life fall apart because of us. Maybe your mother is right. Maybe our worlds are too different. Serena felt tears streaming down her face. No, don't say that. Don't let her win. This isn't about winning or losing, Serena. It's about what's best for you. And you think you know what's best for me? She asked, anger mixing with her sadness. I think you have a life and responsibilities that were always going to be complicated by someone like me. I think I was selfish to believe we could overcome all that. Deshaun, I am sorry, Serena. I think we need to end this before it gets any worse. The line went dead. Serena stared at her phone in disbelief. Deshaun had hung up. He was walking away. And just like that, her mother had won. Or so it seemed. For 3 days, Serena didn't leave her penthouse. She ignored calls from her mother, from board members, from the press. She sat in silence, thinking about her father, about Deshaun, about the life she had been living and the one she wanted. On the 4th day, she showered, dressed, and called her driver. Where to Miss Langley? He asked as she slid into the back seat. Langley Resort's headquarters, she replied, her voice steady. And James? This might be your last day driving me. The executive floor was buzzing with activity when Serena stepped off the elevator. Heads turned, whispers followed her as she walked purposefully toward the main conference room where she knew her mother would be holding the weekly operations meeting. Without knocking, she pushed open the doors. Elizabeth was mid-sentence, standing at the head of the table with a presentation on the screen behind her. She faltered for a moment when she saw Serena, then quickly regained her composure. Serena, how nice of you to join us. We were just discussing the Dubai project. I'm not here for the meeting, Serena said. I'm here to resign. A collective gasp went around the table. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. Don't be dramatic. We can discuss this privately after. No, Mother. We're going to discuss it right now, in front of everyone. Serena stepped forward, placing her hands on the table. I'm resigning from my position at Langley Resorts, effective immediately. I'm also selling my shares. Elizabeth's face paled. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Serena turned to address the entire room. My father built this company to create beautiful experiences for people, to make them feel special and valued. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that. It became about profit margins and brand positioning and manipulating people, including me. Serena, that's enough, Elizabeth warned. No, it's not enough. It's just the beginning. Serena straightened her spine. I've had enough of being controlled and manipulated. I've had enough of sacrificing my happiness for the sake of appearances. I've had enough of this toxic environment where people are valued for what they represent, not who they are. If you do this, Elizabeth said, her voice low and dangerous, there's no coming back. Your trust fund, your penthouse, all of it comes with strings attached. I know, Serena replied, and I'm cutting those strings. Today. With that, she turned and walked out of the conference room, ignoring the stunned faces of the board members and her mother's calls to come back. In the elevator, Serena pressed the button for the lobby, her hands shaking but her resolve firm. She had no idea what came next, but for the first time in her life, the uncertainty felt liberating rather than terrifying. Her phone rang. Her mother, of course. She sent it to voicemail. Then it rang again, an unfamiliar number. Serena almost ignored it, but decided to answer. Miss Langley, a woman's voice said. This is Officer Torres from the Millfield Police Department. There's been an incident involving Deshaun Briggs. Serena's blood ran cold. What kind of incident? Is he hurt? No, ma'am, but his garage was vandalized last night. Quite extensively. He asked us to contact you. Why would he ask you to call me? He broke things off. There was a pause on the other end of the line. He said you'd say that. He also said to tell you he was wrong, and he's sorry, and if you still want to talk, he'll be at Joe's Diner at 7 tonight. Relief flooded through Serena. Tell him I'll be there. As her driver took her back to the penthouse to pack a bag, Serena gazed out at the New York skyline. For years, this city had defined her, shaped her into someone she barely recognized. It was time for a change. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Serena smiled and typed back. No, I'm finally fixing the biggest mistake of my life. I'm choosing to be happy, like Dad would have wanted. Then she turned off her phone and looked forward toward a future she was finally free to create for herself. Joe's Diner was nearly empty when Serena arrived. Only a few locals occupied the booths, and they all turned to stare as she walked in. The paparazzi photos had made her recognizable even in this small town. Deshaun sat in a booth at the back, a cup of coffee in front of him. When he looked up and saw her, relief washed over his face. You came, he said as she slid into the seat across from him. Of course I came. Serena studied his face, noting the dark circles under his eyes. What happened to your garage? Deshaun's expression hardened. Someone broke in last night. Smashed windows, spray-painted the walls, dumped oil all over the floor. The police say it was probably just kids, but the timing seems convenient. My mother, Serena said, anger bubbling up inside her. This has to be her doing. We can't prove that. We don't need to. I know how she operates. Serena reached across the table and took his hand. I'm so sorry, Deshaun. This is all because of me. No, he said firmly, squeezing her hand. It's because some people can't stand to see others happy if it doesn't fit their idea of how things should be. He paused, looking down at their joined hands. I'm the one who should be sorry. I shouldn't have pushed you away. I thought I was protecting you, but really I was just scared. Scared of what? Of not being enough for you. Of you waking up one day and realizing you'd given up too much to be with someone like me. Serena shook her head. That would never happen. Deshaun, today I walked away from everything. My job, my inheritance, the life I've always known. And you know what? I've never felt more free. Deshaun looked at her in surprise. You what? I resigned from Langley Resorts. I'm selling my shares. Serena couldn't help but smile at the shock on his face. I'm done letting my mother control my life. But Serena, that company was your future. Your security. It was my prison, she corrected. A gilded one, but a prison nonetheless. I want a different future now. She took a deep breath. One that includes you, if you'll still have me. Deshaun's expression softened. Are you sure about this? Once the dust settles, you might regret. The only thing I would regret is losing you, Serena interrupted. Everything else is just stuff. Money. Status. None of it made me happy. You do. The waitress approached their table, eyeing Serena curiously. Can I get you anything, honey? Coffee. Please, Serena replied with a smile. And maybe some advice on affordable housing in the area? I'm thinking of moving here. The waitress's eyebrows shot up, but she recovered quickly. Well, Mrs. Peterson's old place above the bookstore is for rent. And I think the Millers are looking to sell their house on Oak Street. Thank you, Serena said. I'll look into those. After the waitress left, Deshawn leaned forward. You're serious about staying here? Completely serious. I need a fresh start, away from New York and my mother's influence. What will you do for work? I doubt there are many openings for former luxury resort executives around here. Serena laughed. I'll figure something out. I have some savings of my own that my mother can't touch. It's not Langley money, but it's enough to start over. Deshawn looked at her with wonder. You really are something else, Serena Langley. Just Serena now, she corrected. No more Langley baggage. As they talked late into the night, they formulated a plan. Serena would stay at the small motel on the edge of town while looking for a more permanent place. Deshawn would focus on repairing his garage, and together, they would weather whatever storm Elizabeth Langley might still send their way. The following weeks were challenging but liberating for Serena. She rented a small apartment above the local bookstore and lived on a fraction of what she was used to. Her designer clothes were replaced with jeans and sweaters from the local department store. Her gourmet meals became home-cooked dinners in Deshawn's tiny kitchen. The press followed her at first, camping outside the bookstore in Deshawn's garage, but small-town solidarity kicked in. Locals would deliberately misdirect reporters or refuse to give interviews. The diner owner banned cameras from his establishment. The town rallied around them, protecting their privacy. Meanwhile, Elizabeth didn't go down without a fight. She froze Serena's remaining company accounts. She spread rumors that Serena was mentally unstable. She even tried to buy Deshawn's garage property out from under him, but the elderly landlord refused to sell. Your mother called me personally, Mrs. Henderson, the 80-year-old property owner, told Deshawn. Offer me twice what this place is worth. I told her some things aren't for sale. Through it all, Serena and Deshawn grew closer. She helped him repair the damage to his garage, learning to use tools and paint walls. He taught her how to change oil, fix a flat tire, and jumpstart a car. Practical skills she'd never needed in her previous life. In the evenings, they would sit on the small balcony of her apartment, drinking beer and watching the sunset. Sometimes they talked about their dreams for the future. Other times they sat in comfortable silence, content just to be together. I never thought I could be this happy with so little, Serena admitted one night, her head resting on Deshawn's shoulder. Is that what this is? Little? He asked, gesturing at the modest surroundings. Serena looked at him, at the stars above them, at the quiet street below. No, she said softly. This is everything. 3 months after Serena's resignation, a for sale sign appeared in the window of the small roadside cafe next to Deshawn's garage. It had been struggling for years, with a rotating cast of owners who couldn't make it profitable. What do you think? Serena asked Deshawn as they stood outside, peering through the dusty windows. About what? About me buying it. Deshawn turned to her in surprise. You want to run a cafe? Why not? I know about customer service from the resort business. I can learn the rest. Serena's eyes were bright with excitement. I could fix it up, make it cozy, serve good coffee and simple food. Maybe add a small boutique section with local crafts. It will be a lot of work, Deshawn cautioned. And small businesses like this struggle in towns like ours. I'm not afraid of hard work, Serena replied. And it will be nice to build something of my own right next to your garage. We could even connect the businesses somehow. Deshawn studied her face, then smiled. You're serious about this? I am. What do you think? I think, he said, pulling her close, that you'd make one hell of a cafe owner. 2 weeks later, Serena signed the papers to purchase the cafe. Her savings took a significant hit, but she didn't care. For the first time in her life, she was investing in her own dream, not her family's. The renovation became a community project. Deshawn's friends from the auto parts store helped replace the plumbing. The high school shop teacher and his students built new tables and shelves. Serena worked alongside them all, painting walls, scrubbing floors, and learning as she went. Elizabeth tried one last power play during this time. She sent Serena a legal letter, threatening to contest her father's will if Serena didn't return to New York and resume her duties. Serena's response was simple and final. I'll see you in court. The letter went unanswered, and eventually, the threats stopped. Elizabeth seemed to finally accept that her daughter had chosen a different path. 6 months after leaving New York, Serena stood proudly in front of her newly renovated cafe. Serena's Place, read the simple sign above the door. It wasn't fancy or luxurious, but it was warm and welcoming, just like she wanted. Ready for the grand opening tomorrow? Deshawn asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied, leaning back against his chest. Do you think people will come? Are you kidding? The whole town's been talking about nothing else for weeks. Mrs. Peterson has been telling everyone about the fresh pastries you're going to serve. And half the guys from the auto parts store are planning to have breakfast here every day. Serena laughed. I hope I don't disappoint them. You won't, Deshawn assured her. You've never disappointed anyone in your life. Except my mother, Serena said, her smile faltering slightly. That's on her, not you. Deshawn turned Serena to face him. Listen to me. What you've done here, walking away from everything you knew, starting over, building something new, it's incredible. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. But not you. You're the strongest person I know, Serena. Serena felt tears prick her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, Deshawn insisted. But I'm glad you didn't have to. The cafe's grand opening exceeded all expectations. By noon, they had run out of pastries. By closing time, the coffee machine was sputtering from overuse. The local paper sent a reporter to cover the event, and the headline the next day read, New York Heiress serves up success in small town. For once, Serena didn't mind the reference to her past. She was proud of who she had been and who she had become. Life settled into a comfortable routine. Serena would rise before dawn to prep the cafe, serving breakfast and lunch to a growing base of loyal customers. Deshawn's garage business picked up as well, partly due to curious people who came to see that mechanic who stole the heiress and stayed for his honest work and fair prices. In the evenings, they would close their respective businesses and meet in the middle, sometimes in the cafe for dinner, sometimes in the garage office to listen to jazz records. They were building a life together, one day at a time. People still whispered, of course. Some locals never fully accepted Serena, viewing her as an outsider or a curiosity. Others speculated about how long she would last before running back to her privileged life. But Serena didn't care. For the first time, she was living authentically, making her own choices, facing her own consequences. The whispers mattered less than the small, daily moments of genuine connection with Deshawn, with her regular customers, with the community that had cautiously embraced her. 1 year after Serena had first crashed her car in the ravine, she and Deshawn stood outside their businesses, looking at the new sign they had installed between them, Briggs & Langley, Auto Repair and Cafe. You kept the Langley name, Deshawn observed. Just for the business, Serena explained. It's part of who I am, even if it's not all of who I am anymore. Deshawn nodded, understanding as always. I think your dad would be proud. I hope so, Serena said softly. I like to think he'd approve of the life I've chosen. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Serena was up early as usual, preparing the cafe for the day ahead. Deshawn was next door, opening the garage for his first appointment. As Serena arranged fresh pastries in the display case, she heard the rumble of a powerful engine outside. Looking up, she saw a sleek black luxury car pull into the shared parking lot. It wasn't the type of vehicle they usually saw in town. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, carrying a leather portfolio. He looked around, spotted the cafe, and headed toward the door. Serena straightened up, brushing flour from her apron. Good morning, she greeted him as he entered. Coffee. The man studied her face. Miss Langley? Serena Langley? Yes, that's me, she replied cautiously. Can I help you? My name is Richard Woodward. I'm an attorney. He placed his portfolio on the counter. I represent your father's estate. Serena felt a chill run through her. My father's been dead for years. I'm well aware, the man replied. I've been trying to locate you. Your mother's office refused to provide your contact information. It was only after I saw that newspaper article about your cafe that I was able to find you. Deshawn appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. He must have seen the luxury car and had come to check on Serena. Everything okay? He asked, his eyes fixed on the suited stranger. This is Mr. Woodward, Serena explained. He says he represents my father's estate. Deshawn moved to stand beside her, a silent show of support. I think you'll want to see this, Mr. Woodward said, opening his portfolio and removing an envelope. It's been in our possession since your father's death, with explicit instructions not to deliver it until certain conditions were met. What conditions? Serena asked. I believe the contents will explain everything. He handed her the envelope. With trembling fingers, Serena opened it. Inside was a deed to a property she had never heard of, 200 acres of land about 30 miles from town, with a small lake and what appeared to be an old farmhouse. I don't understand, she said, looking up at the lawyer. My father never mentioned this property. There's more, Mr. Woodward prompted, pointing to a folded note tucked behind the deed. Serena opened it and immediately recognized her father's handwriting. The note was dated 3 weeks before his death. My dear Serena, if you're reading this, you finally found something real, something worth choosing over the Langley name and fortune. I always feared your mother would try to shape you into someone you're not. She means well, but she never understood that there's more to life than success and status. This land was my secret retreat, a place I went to remember what really matters. No one knows about it. Not your mother, not the board, no one. I bought it under a different name, paid for it with my own money, not the company's. I hoped that someday you would find the courage to chart your own course, to build a life that brings you joy rather than just achievement. This property is my gift to you for that life, a fresh start, unattached to the Langley legacy. Be happy, my darling girl. That's all I ever wanted for you. All my love, Dad. Tears streamed down Serena's face as she handed the note to Deshawn. Your father knew, Deshawn said softly after reading it. He knew someday you'd break free. He prepared for it, Serena agreed, wiping her tears. He left me an escape hatch. Mr. Woodward cleared his throat. There's a substantial trust fund connected to the property as well. Your father established it separately from the family finances. Your mother has no access or control over it. Serena looked at the deed again, then at Deshawn, then at the cafe around them. Can we see the property today? She asked the lawyer. Of course. I can take you there now if you like. We'll follow in my truck, Deshawn said. Let me close up the garage. As Deshawn stepped out, Mr. Woodward lowered his voice. Your father spoke very highly of you, Miss Langley. He said you had a fire in you that your mother would never be able to extinguish. I see now that he was right. Serena smiled through her tears. Thank you for finding me, for bringing this to me. After closing both businesses with hastily scribbled closed for family emergency signs, Serena and Deshawn followed the lawyer's car out of town and into the countryside. The property was even more beautiful than the deed suggested. Rolling hills, mature trees, a crystal-clear lake, and a rustic but solid farmhouse nestled in a clearing. As they stood on the porch, looking out over what was now Serena's land, Deshawn squeezed her hand. What are you thinking? He asked. Serena took a deep breath of fresh country air. I'm thinking my father gave us a gift, a chance to build something new together. The cafe is just getting established, Deshawn reminded her. And my garage has never been busier. We don't have to move right away, Serena said. But someday, maybe we